If your body feels tight, tired, or still carrying old religious stress, I have a free guided meditation to help you settle. It's gentle, trauma-aware, and helps your nervous system shift out of survival mode. You can get it at innerlightcompanion.com. Welcome to the Inner Light Companion, a space to personalize your spiritual journey with the 12 sacred intimacies. I'm Tamara, your companion and guide. Each episode of this podcast explores a facet of connection with the divine, yourself, others, and the world, offering clear markers to recognize, gentle practices to try, and stories that help you grow what's strong and tend to what needs to grow. Move at your pace and use the name for the holy that fits your heart. This isn't therapy or advice. It's a meeting of souls, a place to listen deeply, ask real questions, and remember the wisdom already within you. I invite you now to take a breath. Let's begin. We are currently at episode 11 of our naming the sacred freedom restrictions that show up because of high control religion. And there are 3 more, but to be honest with you, I need to take a pause. So for me, 11 episodes straight, twice a week of naming the things that were abusive so that you can identify them so you can heal has been a bit heavy for me and my nervous system. And so I think if it's heavy for me and my nervous system, it's probably also heavy for you. So today we're taking a break and we're going to do something just a little different that I think will also be very helpful, because not only do we need to be able to identify where the problems are, where the freedoms are restricted, where the abuses exist so we can do some healing, but we also need to understand what safety looks like. Because if you don't know what causes the harm, or you can't quite put your finger on it, and nobody tells you what safety looks like, then there's no frame of reference for rebuilding, for reconstruction after your deconstruction journey. It's honestly something that I wish people would have told me 16 years ago. I wouldn't have done something like walking into a mega church where the emotions were amplified because of the music, and I raised my hand to say I wanted to know Jesus, as if I didn't, so they could corral me into a room and then start their high control tactics. So today's episode is for anyone who's walked out of a church, a spiritual community, or a transformational retreat feeling more anxious, smaller, or more ashamed than when you walked in. Maybe you were told that you were too rebellious, too sensitive, not surrendered enough, or still in your ego. But when you lay awake at night, your body was saying something different. Your chest was tight, your stomach hurt, your sleep was off, your joy was gone. And all the while, you're asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do what the other people apparently could do in that setting? This episode is about that gap, what your body knew and what the system around you refused to see. We're going to look at high control religion and cult-like retreat experiences. I had no idea how many of them there were. One of my clients pointed it out to me, and then I followed on to listen to, there's a whole podcast about cults. Apparently there are more than just one. There are many about cults. And the truth is that there's so many cults. I had no idea. Me, naive, believing that Mormonism was the only one and not realizing that the wellness culture has cults, spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers who you who people tend to throw money at, who I've stood in the same room as face to face, and I could see that their nervous systems were not regulated. So we're going to look at all of these things, and we're going to do it through the nervous system, through polyvagal theory, and talk about why they can cause so much harm and how real embodied healing is absolutely possible. So I've been a therapist, a marriage and family therapist for 30 years, and a spiritual counselor, and left the Mormon Church 16 years ago. After I left, I spent 10 years seeking until I found a spiritual path that works for me. That means I was in a lot of spaces that didn't feel good. And so I'm going to share that with you today. Polyvagal theory, in plain language, if I just give you a quick, really human summary of it, the nervous system is like a 3-story house. On the middle floor, the lights are on, the windows are open, and the kettle's on the stove. This is your ventral vagal state. You feel safe enough, connected, grounded, curious. You can pray. From that place, you can think, you can feel, and relate all at once. On the top floor, everything is buzzing. That's where the alarm bells are, racing thoughts, pacing the hallway. That's your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. It's great when you need to run across the street. It's not so great when your preacher, your pastor, or your retreat leader keeps you there all the time. In the basement, the lights go off. You curl up, go numb, and disappear into yourself. That's your dorsal vagal state. It's shut down, collapse, where you say, I can't. Now, when you think about these 3 floors, your body has something called neuroception. That's an automatic scanner that's always asking, am I safe? Am I in danger? Or is this life-threatening? That scanner decides which floor of the house you're on before your thinking brain or your theology gets to weigh in. Let me give you a story. After I left the Mormon Church, when I was exploring where I could find spirituality again, I went with someone who I was seriously dating to a church where he was pastoring. And I loved listening. The idea of having a spiritual partner who could give beautiful sermons that moved people emotionally was really attractive to me. I always have felt like I should have a spiritual partner. I do now, but it's not church connected. And I was sitting there listening to the talk and thoroughly enjoying it. But then, and here I am having this desire to connect more deeply with God, but not knowing how to find that because my foundation in the Mormon Church was gone. But one of the hymns that they had that day in church was a hymn that I believed, I can't remember which hymn it was, but it was one of the hymns that I thought was fully a Mormon hymn. The pianist started playing the hymn and everyone started singing this hymn that I had heard and sung and felt indoctrinated by in church so many times. I had to leave the building. I ended up in tears and walking around downtown Riverside, California, to try to calm myself, but I was in panic. What my body was doing was moving into a sympathetic fight or flight response to chronic threat that my body remembered from the time that I was in church. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking. I was crying. It's funny, the guy that I was dating, who I later married, who I also divorced, sort of made fun of me for having to leave the church because of a song. But those symptoms, my heart racing and my shaking hands and the tears, They weren't me being too sensitive. It wasn't sin. It wasn't me not being worthy. It wasn't me remembering that the reason I left the church was because I wasn't good enough. All of that was biology. This is why understanding the nervous system matters. When we see what's happening in the body, we can start to tell the truth about what those spaces actually are. So when we think about high control religion, we think about high control wellness cults. We have to think about how it feels in the body. You know, I often am talking with my clients about being nervous system first, which means that anytime there's a choice, an interaction, an opportunity, first stop and feel how it feels in your body. Most of us have been taught to stop doing that, or we've been shamed, guilted, persuaded into bypassing the feelings in our body. One of the aspects of high control religion and cultish wellness groups is a claim that we alone have the truth. It's one of the recognizable patterns of high control religions. Picture this. You walk into a small sanctuary or meeting room. There's a clear leader at the front, maybe a pastor, a guru, or a prophet. The message is, this is the only true church on the face of the earth. And I am the only true mouthpiece. That means no one else can hear God speaking for people. Out there is deception, and here it's safety. This is the clincher. If you leave, you'll lose your blessing, your covering, maybe even your salvation. People around you nod. They let themselves feel safe with that because it's normal for them. But for you, something tightens behind your ribs and your breath gets shallow, but you tell yourself, I'm just new. I need to submit. From a polyvagal perspective, your neuroception has just registered a power imbalance and a social threat. Your body detects, if I disagree, if I pull away, I could lose belonging, love, and maybe even a sense of safety in the world. So your system has a few options. Go sympathetic, argue, push back, leave, or go into a kind of spiritual fawn. So you know about fawn, if you know anything about PTSD and the fawn or freeze state, there's something like a spiritual fawn where you nod, you smile, all the while overriding your own body. Or eventually, when you keep doing that, you go dorsal, that's the basement, you go numb, and you stop feeling anything at all. And it's really interesting, when I was still Mormon and doing counseling for Mormons at LDS Family Services, which I've shared before, people say, I don't feel anything. I don't understand why other people can have a testimony and I don't when I don't feel anything. Not feeling anything is your clue that your body is really not safe. High control systems reward fawning and shutdown. They call it submission, obedience, or dying to self. And it's really very interesting because as I've been putting clips out on TikTok specifically, one of my clips was, God doesn't need your body for you to be spiritual. And people chimed in and said, we're supposed to give everything. We're supposed to die to ourselves in Christ. But there's two ways to do that. One of them is by choice and making choices that further your life in a way that does not sacrifice your health. This is where the nervous system is doing everything it can not to be cast out. That's what happens inside high control religion. In high control religion, there's also fear-based doctrine that acts as a chronic threat, a constant threat. Imagine every week feeling like hell and demons and spiritual warfare and curses were coming on you. If bad things happened, it's because you hadn't tithed enough. Or there's that one thing you never confessed. It leads to living in fear, because fear, this is a doctrine, is a lack of faith. When we pray harder in fear, we feel worse. The language keeps the nervous system in a chronic state of sympathetic arousal, always scanning for danger, always trying to fix yourself so God won't be mad. And over time, the system gets exhausted and often collapses into dorsal shutdown, where you feel numbness, depersonalization, and say things like, I can't feel God, so I must be the problem. From the outside, it may look like devotion. From the inside, the body is trying desperately to protect itself from unrelenting threat when you can't get anything right because you're human. The third pattern is love bombing and an instant sense of family. So this happens in church, but it can also very much happen in a guru-led space, in a high control wellness atmosphere. It's interesting because I also have in my career served victims of domestic violence. And one of the telltale signs that a relationship is likely to become abusive is in the mental health circles, we call it too fast of involvement. In religious circles and wellness circles, it's called intense rapid bonding. Think of the first time you went to a church or retreat. People swarmed you. We're so glad you're here. You're family now. I feel such a deep connection with you. And those feel welcoming. It reduces the threat to your sense of belonging. So you share your story. You cry. They cry. They tell you it's the Holy Spirit or fate or your soul contract. What's happening here is a mix of ventral vagal and sympathetic activation. You feel seen, held, maybe for the first time ever, and your system goes, oh, safety, and it lights up. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. Human beings are wired for co-regulation and connection. The problem is when that initial high is quickly tied to loyalty oaths, major life decisions, spending a lot of money, or cutting off your previous support systems. Maybe you say to yourself that your family won't understand this and you can't share this with people who aren't at this level. Don't listen to the outsiders. They'll just pull you down. Let's pause for a moment and check in with your body. If you're here, there's a good chance you've carried both spiritual trauma and long-term stress. Your mind has been deconstructing high control religion, but your nervous system is still stuck in survival mode. Tired, wired, inflamed, or numb. That's exactly why I created the Inner Light Longevity Reset, a 12-week trauma-aware journey for women leaving high control faith. We spend the first 4 weeks teaching your body how to feel safe again with simple somatic practices, breath, rest, and nervous system friendly movement. Then we gently name and rewrite the survival scripts that religion wired into your body, like rest is lazy, or I have to perform to be loved. Finally, We design a sustainable, long-term rhythm so your future 80-year-old self has a calm nervous system, steady energy, and a life that actually feels like it's yours. If you're ready to step out of chronic threat and into sacred safety, you can learn more and join the next round at innerlightcompanion.com/longevity-reset to apply for a discovery call. That's innerlightcompanion.com/longevity-reset. Now your nervous system is in a bind. The only place that feels safe is the very place that's isolating you. This sounds an awful lot like abusive relationships. Outside relationships start to feel threatening, even if they're actually healthy. Why? Because healthy relationships push us and question us and say, this doesn't look safe. What are you doing? But the indoctrination of that special kind of belonging has already told you that people will question you. But what you've experienced here is so special. Don't let them wear down your awareness of how special you are. In cult-like retreats, now we're talking about wellness specifically, there is a high that comes from this kind of experience and a crash. Imagine you've just signed up for it, right? Let's zoom real close on this one. You just signed up for a 3-day retreat in the mountains. The website promises massive transformation and quantum leaps. You arrive Friday night a little anxious and hopeful. Your sympathetic nervous system is online. Did I pack everything? Will I fit in? From the moment you arrive, the structure is often designed, consciously or not, to override your pacing. There's a long opening circle with very personal sharing, maybe too personal for that fast, right? There's intense breath work or cathartic exercises on the first night of the weekend. And then there's early morning sessions, late night breakthrough work. You have very limited time alone, and there is group pressure to participate in everything. When that happens, your nervous system goes into an arc. You start in a hopeful, sympathetic mode. This might change my life. And then there's a big ventral plus sympathetic high. So during group rituals and crying and shaking, you experience euphoria. Then, without enough nervous system integration, you start to swing. And nervous system integration takes time. It means that you're listening to your own pace, not the group pace. And it means that you're gentle with yourself and listening to your own inner signals. Without that, you start to swing. You find yourself in hyperarousal. You can't sleep, and you find yourself overwhelmed by emotion. Or you find yourself in hypoarousal. You find yourself feeling numb or spaced out, or like you're watching yourself from the outside. In many of these spaces, that numb, floaty state is called ego death or surrender. But your body may actually be in dorsal shutdown. So let me tell you a composite story that I've heard in different forms over the years. I'll call this person Maya. Maya signs up for a spiritual retreat because she's burned out, hungry for God, and desperate for relief. On day 1, they do a powerful breathwork session, deep, fast breathing, set to loud music. She starts tingling, crying, seeing images. The facilitator says, "Yes, go further. This is your trauma leaving your body." By day 2, Maya is exhausted. They're doing 6-hour blocks of work with little rest. People are encouraged to push past resistance. And when she says she's dizzy and wants to sit out, the assistant suggests that her ego is trying to stay in control. On the last night, everyone gathers for a big surrender ritual. People are wailing, shaking, collapsing, and Maya feels herself going very far away, like she's underwater. The facilitators call it a breakthrough. They take a group photo. Everyone looks blissed out. Then Maya goes home. The next week, she can't sleep. She startles easily, cries in the grocery store, feels like her skin is too thin. She tries to call the retreat center and is told to stay in the work and not to talk to low vibration people. Her therapist, if she has one, is left to pick up the pieces. This actually makes me mad. So, from a nervous system perspective, the retreat overloaded her window of tolerance. Too much intensity, too fast, with not enough safety and integration. So her system ping-ponged between sympathetic spikes and dorsal crashes. The peak spiritual moment may have been a mix of intense arousal and shutdown, not anchored in ventral safety. It's not that no one ever has genuine spiritual encounters at retreats. Of course they do. But if the event doesn't respect your biology, the cost can be really high. So let's talk about the aftermath, because this is where many listeners start blaming themselves. Common post-high control or post-retreat symptoms include anxiety, panic, or a constant urge to pray or meditate correctly. Nightmares about leaders, hell, or being called out in front of the group. Difficulty making decisions without a spiritual authority weighing in. Body symptoms like chronic tension, digestive issues, headache, or fatigue. Feeling spiritually numb. I can't feel God anymore, so I must be broken. From a polyvagal lens, your nervous system has associated God or awakening with threat and overwhelm. That's why it's so hard after high control religion, specifically for me, Mormonism, to find God again. Many people just give up. Because your neuroception is doing its job, keeping you away from what feels dangerous, even if that thing is labeled church or retreat or God. And then you feel terrible about yourself because you can't connect with God, because God feels too scary. Your window of tolerance through all of those experiences may have shrunk. Things that used to feel neutral, like a worship song that I shared, or a meditation track, now feel activating. The tragedy is that people interpret this as I've fallen away or I've lost my calling, when what really is happening is your body stepped in to protect you. So now I want to talk about what healing looks like. The first step in healing is honoring the wisdom of the body. I've seen when I'm working with people who leave very tight religious groups that for months, whenever they try to pray using the old language, they get scared, they feel nausea, they get dizziness. It's even easy for people like this to believe that Satan is attacking your prayer life. But we can reframe that like this. What if your body is saying, that way you were taught to talk to God hurt me. I can't go back there. So instead, do something really simple. for a season, just stop using the old words. Sometimes the only prayer you need is to put your hand on your heart and take 3 slow breaths with long exhales to gently tone your vagus nerve while you say, I'm here, you're here. That's enough. The more I have been healing my own nervous system, the more I am convinced that our bodies in a relaxed, open state are built to connect with God and what is spiritual. And something as simple as this is a spiritual practice. And it's also nervous system repair, and they have to go together. Next thing you can do to heal is find support that understands both trauma and spirituality. Imagine sitting with someone who doesn't say, just forgive and move on, or just find another church, but instead asks, what happens in your body when you walk past a church building now? What happens when you think about going? I still have people who invite me. When people find out that I left the Mormon church, people still invite me to come back to church. What happens when that happens for you? Does your throat tighten? Does your jaw clamp? Do you feel tears behind your eyes? That is gold. It's information. In polyvagal informed therapy or spiritual direction, we track states. Right now, as you remember being in church, do you feel more buzzy and agitated, which is sympathetic nervous system, or collapsed and far away, which is dorsal? We build resources, safe people, safe images of the divine, grounded practices that bring you back to ventral safety. That's what I love about my 12 sacred intimacies. It's very much a somatic awareness of the way you can connect with the divine. We work in tiny doses, touching the pain for a moment, then returning to something that helps you feel okay. This is not about fixing your faith. It's about giving your body the slow, consistent experience of it's safe to exist again. Another piece of healing is reclaiming our own inner signals. High control spaces teach you to distrust your body. Your heart is deceitful. Feelings lie. Don't lean on your own understanding. In healing, we gently experiment with the opposite. Let's say you decide to try visiting a new spiritual group. Instead of asking, is their doctrine perfect? You might ask, how does my body feel as I walk in? How do I feel during the teaching? How do I feel afterwards? Maybe your breath stays easy. You notice genuine warmth, but you don't feel pressured. You leave feeling more like yourself, not less. I remember this after I attended my first kirtan, which I loved. No kirtans around me now, but my goodness, I felt that there. Or maybe your shoulders climb toward your ears. You feel subtly shamed into signing up, volunteering, giving. You go home exhausted, and here's the key, self-critical. That information matters. Healthy spirituality will never chronically require you to override your body's no. So let's talk about a few red flags and green flags so that you can understand what you're looking for in churches and retreat spaces. Here are some nervous system red flags to pay attention to. Questioning is pathologized. If you say, I'm not sure about this, and the response is, that's your ego, your rebellion, your demon, rather than tell me more, your body is not safe there. Or there could be urgency and pressure. Don't think, just commit. If you walk out now, you'll miss your blessing. You'll miss your chance. This is the only opportunity. High urgency is usually sympathetic activation, not the Holy Spirit. Or another red flag, your limits are shamed. You're exhausted and someone says, that's your resistance, push through. Gordon B. Hinckley says, the best way to avoid exhaustion is to serve someone who's more tired than you. Your no is treated as a problem to be overcome rather than something to respect. Another red flag is secrecy and isolation, where you're discouraged from talking about what happened there with family, friends, or your therapist. Where any outside perspective is labeled as negative or low vibration. If you notice these, your nervous system is probably already doing something to protect you. Listen to that. Let's talk now about some green flags, signs of nervous system safe spirituality. Leaders who say things like, if anything we do here feels like too much, please step out, drink water, take a breath. You know your body best. Communities that normalize doubt and struggle as part of the journey, not as failure. Retreats that build in rest, quiet, unstructured time, and encourage you to opt out of any exercises without any shame. Spaces where over time you feel more connected to your body, not less, more able to set boundaries, more compassionate toward yourself and others. That's what ventral vagal spirituality looks like. Safe, connected, grounded, able to feel both God and your own feet at the same time. So I know that's a lot. I packed a lot into this episode, and so I want to give you a chance to calm your system down if this activated you. So let's close with a really short practice that you can do right now, unless you're driving. Let your eyes land on something neutral in the room. It could be a plant, it could be the corner of a picture frame, or the way the light falls on the wall. Just notice it. Feel where your body meets the chair or the bed. If it helps, press your feet gently into the floor and then let go. Place your hand on your heart or your sternum. If that's too much, just rest your hand on your thigh. And take 3 slow breaths. Let the exhale be just a little longer than the inhale. Maybe a count of 4 in and 6 out. This longer exhale gently activates your vagus nerve and tells your body, right now, in this moment, you're safe enough. As you breathe, you might say something like, body, thank you for trying to protect me. I don't have to override you to be spiritual. Love is allowed to feel like safety. If the old God language is too charged, that's okay. Your breath, your heartbeat, your presence, right now, those are enough of a prayer. You are not broken because you needed to leave an unsafe system. Your body, your nervous system may actually be the way the Spirit is leading you toward a more embodied, more honest, more loving spirituality. Thanks for listening. As you step into your day, notice. Which intimacy stirred for you? And then choose one small practice and let it meet you where you are. You want support? Grab the free Sacred Intimacy snapshot, and when you're ready, the full Sacred Intimacy assessment that can guide your next steps. Links are in the show notes. Until next time, walk gently, listen deeply, and trust the light within.